Joanne, all set?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Paul.
All right, North Smithfield Town Council meeting, April 17th, 2023. Madam Clerk, can you start us with a pledge, the prayer and a pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. Excuse me. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard, Ms. Hamilton,
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara, here. Mr. Ogier,
Here.
Ms. Alves.
Here. Okay, our first agenda topic is executive session. A, discussion by council vote or other action in its capacity as North Smithfield Town Council and as the Board of Directors of the Slatersville Water Company pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation or potential litigation. 1, potential litigation. B, discussion by council vote or other action pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A5, any discussions or considerations related to the acquisitions or lease of real property for public purposes or of the disposition of publicly held property wherein advanced public information would be detrimental to the interests of the public. 1, discussion, vote, or other action on the acquisition of real property for public purposes.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
That's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara, Mr. Ogier,
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Joanne, all set?
All set.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we reconvene into open session and to let the record reflect that no votes were taken and to seal the minutes.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is open forum. Anyone like to speak? Anyone sign up? No? No? Anyone like to speak? No?
Did you only come out of executive session?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You should note that, item B, no discussion was had.
Okay.
And just let the record also reflect that under item B of executive session, no discussion was had.
Do you need a roll call on that?
No, that's it. We don't need a vote, right, David?
We
We
need a
don't need
roll
to vote
call
on
on that?
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to reflect, you came out of executive session, you sealed the minutes. You said no votes were taken, but also no discussion was had on anything.
Okay. All right, so one more call for open forum. Anyone like to speak? All right, next item agenda is discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills.
Madam President, I have just one quick question. The aging well, $20,000 for 22-23 support. Do we have any information on what that is and if that's something that will be recurring?
It's from Parks and Rec for senior services. Usually it is a yearly thing, yeah.
It's $20,000 a year?
Usually, yeah, it was in there, it was budgeted for last year as well.
Okay.
And where is it budgeted?
And Parks and Rec,
And do we know, out of curiosity, what kind of support it is? What kind of, is it activities? Is it,
I'm pretty sure it's activities, but I don't have the exact details on what it provides. I just know it was a yearly thing through Parks and Rec. If you want, I can always provide more details at a later time, though, on what it provides.
yeah, it would be great just to find out what,
Yeah,
what we're giving, 20,000, which probably could be for activities that are there, for meals, I'm not sure, but,
if I'm not mistaken, from the budget, from when DPW was presenting, if I remember correctly, it was, but I can be doubly sure about it. I can send that information to you.
okay, that'd be great, thank you.
I saw, that's a couple of questions also. There's 4 charges from Atlantic Locksmith saying service calls and keypad and remote. Like, what building is that we're having the issues with?
So it looks like I can look up the Atlantic. So there's 14211. Give me 1 second. Let me look.
Got the budget unit number, Council President?
50550.
That's one, and
Or
then
the
it looks
that's
like
the account, but the budget unit is
51990.
4211. We have 4312 and 4800.
4211 is police.
So,
4312 is Parks and Rec. And 4800 is general government. So that one was obviously here. So I'm not sure where specifically they did the work on for Parks and Rec, but I know the general government was for here.
All right, and then there's one other question. State of Rhode Island for a notary application for Girton. Who's Girton? That, I don't know, Matt. It says J. Girton, but I don't know who that is in town hall or town. I mean, is that Denise Gerton? I don't know who Jay Gerton.
No,
Yeah.
I'm stretching to see where Gerton might be.
there's a Girton underneath, working for Pentagas.
I mean, it's a Department 50470. I don't know if that,
I'm looking it up now. I don't know why it's not showing up here. I remember it.
Jay Gerton. Oh, 50470.
Supplies for
Tax assessor.
I'm seeing it's under police department, but the specific person who Jay Gerton is, I'm not exactly sure, but it's under police department.
Just hold it. till
Could we just find out some
Yeah.
more information?
Yeah,
Let us
definitely.
know.
Mhm.
Can pay with the exception of that.
Hmm?
Pay with the exception.
All right, anyone have any other questions on the bills? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we have the payment of bills with the exception of budget unit 1014211, account number 50470, for the notary application for Jay Gerton.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, and a second, any further discussion?
Just a quick discussion. I just thought of it now. I know we seem to have questions a lot about what's being paid, which is great. But if it's over maybe over a certain dollar amount, maybe we should just ask for like an itemized breakout of what it is. That way we don't I'm just using the $20,000 as an example tonight, right? That's the whole budgeted amount in one meeting, which is fine. But then at least if we had that as like supplemental details to this, then at least we don't have to worry about trying to use the meeting to figure out where it wins. So just maybe something we should consider in the future.
Oh, that's great, that'd be great.
Madam President, can I ask a question? So you're approving the bills less the notary,
notary
so
application.
that amount should be deducted from
Right.
the motion also, right?
Yep.
So
That has to be in for the auditing purposes, so.
So, you want to do it?
Just pull out the
go
name.
ahead.
How much was it for?
So it's, the total amount would be $2,637,568.10.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. House?
Yes. North Smithfield Town Council sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. A, discussion by council vote or other action on peddler holiday license for Keystone.
We just found it. You want to?
I found the first
Add-
one, but we can always discuss it later. Sorry.
Keystone Firework Tents, location to be at 900 Victory Highway.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
That's okay.
Could
It's
you,
the regular,
um,
just like last year's, and as far as I know, there was no reports of any problems.
Could you just state your name and your address for
My
the
name's
record?
Ed McMahon, I'm from Cumberland, Rhode Island.
And how long will you be at 900 Victory Highway?
We're gonna be there from June 22nd and closes July 5th.
And Madam Clerk, everything is in order?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the peddler holiday license for Keystone Firework Tents, location to be at 900 Victory Highway between June 22 and July 5 of 2023.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes,
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
B, discussion by council vote or other action on victualling holiday license for Brigado's Fresh Market located at 900 Victory Highway. It's for a new ownership.
Welcome, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Michael Fernandez, 393 Adams Avenue, West Hempstead, New York, 11552.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, everything's in order here as on the application?
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what it is that you're looking for?
Who I went, sorry?
What it is you're looking for exactly? It says a victualling holiday license.
No, I guess it's just a standard license that we have to apply, and
Oh,
because I'm,
because you're new.
it's standard, right?
Oh,
Nothing,
okay, got it.
nothing over,
Great, okay.
just because it's new ownership. I
Right,
have to swap out the license from Mark to myself.
okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming to town.
Thank you, look forward to it.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the victualling holiday license transferred to Brigado's Fresh Market located at 900 Victory Highway due to new ownership.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes,
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Welcome.
thank you,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
And good
Very
luck.
much. Thank you.
Good luck.
Discussion by council vote or other action on solicitation license for renewal by Anderson. Yep.
I'll ask my question afterwards.
Hi, could you state your name and address, please?
Yes, my first name is Iman, last name is Abuara. I'm representing Renewal by Anderson at 10 Reservoir Road, Smithfield, Rhode Island, 02917.
Thank you.
Is this better?
So this will actually be door-to-door sales, is that correct?
We would not be selling anything at the door. It is just to discuss with homeowners door-to-door in regards to their health of windows and doors, and to see if they are interested in setting up a counseling with one of our foremans in regards to pricing on replacement. So we would not be selling anything at the door, but we would be going door-to-door soliciting our services.
So would you have a vehicle labeled Anderson or just ID on you?
It would be my ID, just as I'm dressed right now, and I would be using my own vehicle, which is registered at the state of Rhode Island.
Okay, and it says the dates and hours of solicitation would be noon to sunset?
Correct. Usually, we would leave office between 12 to 12:30, and I would not stay in dark. I would leave before sunset.
I have a few questions. What you're doing is actually sales, and when you go out, that's lead taking, setting up appointments.
Correct. It is a form of marketing, but I would not be selling a window or a door at that time of the
That's right, that's
interaction.
why you call it a lead taker, so the other people
Correct.
who come in that are a little more adept and knowledgeable about the product,
Correct.
and can set up the contracts.
Correct. Correct.
Now, I just think there's some people, we're getting to the point where this is happening, religious groups, et cetera. I'm only asking if you see no soliciting to honor it.
Oh, I would not knock on a door that
Okay,
has no
thank you.
soliciting. Or a private property. I would not go in there.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
The length of the operation says the length of permit. Do we have like a default date? Is it like,
So this is annual. Unfortunately, Anderson had, they had filled out all their paperwork to do this as an annual license.
Okay.
They never picked up when we issued them, so it was never put under the,
Okay.
so everything really was approved already for this. It's just they're coming in very late for the,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the solicitation license for renewal by Anderson, and it would start immediately, and it would be from noon to sunset in North Smithfield.
I second motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes?
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Ogier,
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. A, Town Council minutes of March 20th and April 3rd. Communications of Animal Control Monthly Report for March 2023. North Smithfield Police Department Monthly Report for March 2023. North Smithfield Municipal Court Monthly Report for March 2023, and North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Monthly Report for February and March of 2023. I would like to remove the minutes of March 20th. Anyone else? And also, I'm sorry, also the minutes of April 3rd. Anyone else like to remove anything? Could someone make a motion to accept the additional items on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the additional items except for the minutes of March 20th and April 3rd.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Ogier,
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. On the minutes of March 20th, on the second page, for the 3 to 5 year forecast, the last paragraph, it said, Ms. Alves stated having an income or operational statement will be needed in the near future. Can you just make a note that that's for the multi-generational facility that's going to be required? And that was it on the 20th. Anyone else have anything on those? April 3rd. It's just on the grant updates. It said the town has applied for, it's the second paragraph when they're talking about the Rhode Island Commerce has offered called Slight Readiness Grant. It's site readiness.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's all I had on those two. Anyone else? Anyone like to make a motion to approve those changes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the town council minutes of March 20 and April 3rd, 2023 with corrections.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Ogier,
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Old business, discussion by council vote or other action on status/progress report on completion of specific items. The first one is the Municipal Building Review Task Force. Mr. Vadney?
Madam Chair, members of the council, the task force had a meeting on April 13th with Tecton to continue the process. At that meeting, we were given reports in regards to the immediate repairs for the police station to meet the requests of the trust. We got a report from Fuss and O'Neill dated on April 12th, 2023 in regards to asbestos-containing materials in the building and what would be needed, and also an asbestos abatement plan draft to be submitted to the Department of Health going forward once we get to that approval stage, and an asbestos abatement specifications to be issued with the bidding documents, and the progress set of drawings to be submitted with the bidding documents. We're at the point now on this process that's what the next joint meeting that I've put out the request for. Tecton is available on the 26th, so one thing we need to do is confirm that date, that it will be on the 26th. I have talked to the finance director. I will be meeting with him Thursday this week to go over what we have to put in the packet, because Tecton is going to provide the body of the bid spec. The town will put the front and the back end on the bid spec. That's all the town is going to be required to do. We've talked with Tecton. They're going to get the body of the work together, with the town putting the front and back end on. So I'm going to meet with the finance director on Thursday to make sure that we're all on the same page, so that it'll be ready if we meet on the 26th. If you just confirm that we'll meet on the 26th, then we'll know that we'll have everything ready. We have a recommendation coming forward for you, so that you can take action, hopefully on the 26th, to move this ready for bid, to put it out for bidding.
Yep, go ahead.
Can we be provided with any documents prior to that meeting, so that we
I'm
can
working on
have a
getting
chance to look at them?
PDFs of all of that stuff. I will forward it to the clerk, so you will have everything in a packet
Okay. Thank you. Oh, nice package.
prior to that meeting.
Could we actually pick up packets, like, as soon as they're ready, just so we can review it before the meeting?
Yes, I just wanted to make certain that the meeting date was good for the council, because I've received 3 okays, but I just wanted to make sure we're good.
Is there
With
someone
everyone
here
else.
tonight that has an answer?
So I wasn't sure, I know, Ms. Dozier, you had said you could do another day if possible, but
Yeah, I
originally we
said
were
Thursday
starting
was
with
my
a Thursday.
preference, but as long
Okay.
as it's like 6:30, 6:45, Wednesday the 26th
Thursday
is
was our
more.
preference as well, but
Right.
Tecton is not available.
Yeah, I'll make it work. I'll be here.
And
Yeah.
We're trying,
Ms.
we're
Hamilton
trying,
also?
we're trying to,
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
trying to get 13, 14 people at the same day, and it's always not easy.
So would we do 6:45, the normal time?
Your normal time
Okay.
here, Tecton will be here. In part of that discussion, we did discuss on how we were gonna go about with the bidding process, how we would like to see it done, so that, not to take it away from you, but you'll have, the bidding documents will be all set when you get them, to see them. It's gonna be bid out in, like, almost add alternates, as opposed to one big project, almost like a shopping list. So that when the bids come in, and we do have estimates, we've had an estimate, they've had an estimator look at it, not us, they've had an estimator look at it. Currently now, Ryder Levitt and Bucknell has done an estimate on it, and their numbers for construction are about $727,000. And the total project cost is about $957,000, which is within the $1 million budget that we set on day one when we started this project. So we're trying to work within that number. So it's gonna be bid out in pieces, almost like a shopping list. So as we see if prices are too high in some places, we can say, okay, we can't do this, but we can do this, we can do this. And so you'll have that. We'll review it with Tecton, make a recommendation, and the council will have that opportunity to say, okay, we're gonna go forward with this based on the recommendation. So hopefully we can get all the stuff done, but if not, it will be like a shopping list, and we'll be able to say, okay, we can do without this. We need this, we need this. And the biggest question mark that's in it is, when they go through the process, they're gonna be doing some selective demolition on the facade to see how the widths of the brick are, how far the decomposition is in it, will determine on what they need to do to hold that facade up and what the options are. Depending on the level of deterioration, it might just be that they can use epoxy and screws to hold it up, or it might be that they have to take it down and cover it with a sheet metal facade to make it look, doesn't look like the wall is falling apart. They'll secure it, but it will be covered over, with some other type. It won't be just rebuilding the brick. We don't know where that's gonna go yet. That'll only be known once it goes out to bid and the guy starts actually looking at the job. But we have all Tecton has all the drawings. They have everything is in draft right now. When I send her the email saying we're ready to go on the 26th, they will change it from draft to sign, stamp drawings and all of that and everything. So
So
by the 26th, it will be ready for the council to make a decision.
So by getting these bids, are you getting any ideas as to how far out the project, like for services, are things like getting better?
Escalation is leveling off. It appears that work is slowing down a little bit because guys have just stopped projects because of numerous factors. The town is fortunate right now because we really started this process post-pandemic. A lot of the guys that are having problems started their projects pre-pandemic. They did their pricing pre-pandemic. Now they're trying to award them post-pandemic. And the skew is, it's just way out of whack. We've been on one side of it, and so we're not seeing that level of cost overruns that some guys are seeing. Like we were talking the other night, Quincy passed a bond a few years ago to build a new police station. Just ironically, this for $125 million.
Oh, my God.
It's $23 million over budget. They have to find $23 million to finish the project because of, it was started pre-pandemic and now, and so that's what, we're on the other side of that, fortunately. And so the numbers that we've been looking at, the 17 million is our total project cost. That's pretty much holding where it is. Numbers are pretty much holding where they are.
So there's contractors out there that are ready to work? They're not
There
going
are
out like a
people,
year?
there will
Okay.
be people looking for work. This is not really a big job, and you may end up finding it's a guy that specializes in stuff like this. It's not just a general contractor. Some of this is kind of like specialty work. Some of it is regular work. I mean, they're replacing doorways. They're gonna fix the ramp so that it's more stable. It's, everything that they're looking to do is to address the concerns of the trust, so we can continue to insure the building. That's what all of this piece of the project is. And we'll have better update. I can give you a quick little update on the new part of the station where they've gone through the program with the square footage. I know that you weren't here, Ms. Alves, the other night, but I did update them that the number that we're looking at now is about 14,850 square feet. From what they presented at the beginning of March, we've added about 700 square feet back on after meeting with the chief and the task force, things that we believe we need that we can't do without. They were cutting too far. Some cuts that we're still leaving in there, we don't completely agree with them, but we're leaving them there at that point. And so that's why I say the number's staying in that $17 million range. They did a test fit to see how it would fit for a one-story building now. If that doesn't work, they think it's gonna work with a one-story building. They're still drawing lines, and because it's like a big box now. Now they're filling in all the little boxes. They're still working with the eraser to try to make it work and everything. If it doesn't work, we go to 2 stories. We got to add about 800 square feet, which is stairwells, elevator space, and stuff like that. They're confident they can fit one-story building right now, based on what they gave us. So that's where we sit. We'll have more information on that meeting. And then when we do talk about that, if we're going to meet on the 26th, Joanne will have an agenda for me by Wednesday.
Okay.
And so some of the things we're going to have to talk about, though, is a resolution for binding from the legislation to get a bond question out there and stuff like that. We have to stop moving on that, because obviously the General Assembly will be done in June, and based on the comments from bond counsel, we're about a month behind where we should have been on that. So hopefully we'll be ready so that we can start the town will start that process, getting ready for a special election question to tie in with the Congressional District 1 seat, the end of October, beginning of November, whenever that's going to be. So we don't have to have our own special election. So that's where we sit.
Are we addressing some of the issues? Can I go back to the renovation, if you will, or just health
The
and
immediate
safety
repairs?
issues that are being addressed? Are they prioritizing them in terms of, I know the roof leaks, I know, that some of the bathroom facilities are just falling apart. I mean, are those things being addressed as well, or is it just structurally, externally, in the envelope of the building? How is it working?
Most of it is in regards to the envelope of the building. There's very little renovating work inside. It's to address the concerns of the trust. Basically, that's what we're working toward.
Because I would like to see something done inside the building as well, because I just don't think it's, I know we don't want to spend a lot of money, and if my colleague, Mr. Biergard, was here, he would be yelling and screaming about putting a dime in, but, and I agree with that. I just think that there are certain things within that building that are just not safe for them, other than the edifice itself, but is there any way, so there's nothing within that $700,000 that would address some of those concerns, water leaking through the ceiling and things
Oh,
of
no,
that
that,
nature?
all those things, the leaking roof, the doorways, the ramp, the sidewalks, we can't change the windows out. The facade, all of, in the back ramp, the back stairwell needs to be re-anchored to the building and reset. The structural engineer picked those things up, so things between the structural engineer and what the insurance company has said, these are items that you need to address in order for us to continue to insure the building. That's what we're addressing.
All
And
right.
they're pretty much what was on our list almost 3 years ago, when we went to the council saying, hey, look, we got about $1 million.
Right.
These are the issues that we need to address. What do you want to do? And that's when they gave the task force the job to go out and look to see what renovating that building to bring it up to current code would be, or making a new building, and that's where we started that process, so we're
Yeah, I'm just
we're
thinking.
back where
it-
we were
right.
almost 3 years ago.
Right, in 3 years, a lot of things have happened within the building, though, and the chief has been up at the podium expressing that porcelain toilets crack because the windows don't shut and it's so cold, and, there are things like that I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but, get a toilet.
Basic human.
Paint some stuff,
Come on.
fix the floor that is in front of dispatch, that they can't roll their chairs anymore because it's complete, those types of things. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think even if we approved, let's say we have the gods in our favor and everything is, we go to the legislature and we get on a ballot and we have this special election and it's unanimously approved, you're talking a year and a half before it gets started, right? I don't think any one of us would want to
It's
live
basic human
in that.
needs.
Right,
They have to work.
Basic human needs, that's a very good way of putting it, yeah. So I don't know how we can address that. Obviously, we can't address it with this bond, right?
Well, you may,
it's
it depends on
secured.
how the bids come in, and right now, I know that now you just redid the parking lot, so there was about 1.2 million.
Right,
There's 120 that we just spent on the parking lot. I'm not arguing that.
right,
We didn't do it at the time because the costs that we had were far higher. It was far greater the cost that we got to do that parking lot as part of this project. That's why, and it was an ad alternate that we didn't recommend doing it. For whatever reason, it was cost less this time, even with the price of petroleum products up.
all right.
I don't know why, but it just ended up that way.
Well, I would
So
ask,
there may
yeah.
be funds,
good,
and that's why when we originally came before the council and we were talking about putting the immediate repairs out in a bond question, so they would come together, so you would know, okay, we know the end game now. Now we can know what we should do with this, because there may be things that you could say, okay, let's not do that, because the building's gonna get torn down, we're gonna build a new building. But we're not at that point yet, so.
right, right. Well, I would just ask the task force, in your deliberations, if you could possibly consider those types of things, just for help, basic
Absolutely.
human.
But those things could be awarded outside of the immediate repairs project. You follow me?
And
You-
paid by what?
Huh?
And paid by what?
If there's bond money left with that,
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
you wouldn't want to give, we'll use the dispatcher's area.
Mhm.
You wouldn't want to give this to this contractor to have him go and put new tile down on the floor.
No.
There's
Right,
not,
right,
the mobilization, the biggest cost, I think, on this project is going to be mobilization, because it's not a big project,
okay.
but you're paying to mobilize on the site to get the work done.
And we don't have to displace anyone to have the work done while
No.
it's being done?
No, none of this work will need, they will isolate where they need to. That's what the asbestos is. They had to redo the plan, because the plan that the town has was to do the whole building, which we will have to do eventually when you tear the building down, you will. But right now, in order to do the selective demolition to find out how the structure is,
Right.
they have to build a wall inside the building. If that's the outside wall with the windows, they're gonna build a wall from the basement to the roof with 2x6s on every level to support it, so that when you open up that wall, the pressure's not on it. And so they gotta isolate that piece of it because the plaster has asbestos in it.
Right.
So they'll isolate it, put it under negative draft, and they'll do the demolition work. That's what Fuss and O'Neill just went through
Okay.
with their hygienist to address
Oh, good.
that concern. The only thing that they found that was hot was the plaster. There's no floor tiles, there's no paint, it's the plaster
Yeah.
that's hot. So,
Okay, thank you.
so we'll be meeting on the 26th.
So Joanne, I'm sorry, did anyone else not respond to you? Okay, so everyone's good for the 26th?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Alright.
26th.
Okay, I'll get you an
Mr.
agenda
Vadney, I'd
probably
like
by
to add one
Wednesday.
more.
It's easy to make them up now. And then,
Ms. Hamilton put forth some things that are just basic human needs. To go through that place, if the health department would to be brought in today, they would condemn certain parts of that station.
Yeah, it won't take that much to get some of those items
No.
fixed, but I'd like them to stay in the forefront, so that we are at least addressing them on some level.
mhm,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry that took so long.
Yeah, that's fine. The next one is the 3 to 5 year forecast. So we, Mr. Ogier, myself, and Tony met last week, kind of reviewed what we were looking for, and I think we're kind of going down the right path, I think. So I know you said you'll start working on it, and you'll give us an update when that might be completed or reviewed, or?
Yeah, I started a little bit today with the tax assessor, her and I'm going to talk to a couple of other tax assessors from other towns to see if there might be some other ideas as well, but I started there and I'm going to start working down the list.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is grants.
So the COPS grant, as I reported last week, that the chief and the planner were working in unison to get this to happen. So as of this morning, they were both finishing up on a report that is due tomorrow. That's about it on grants.
Is
So-
that an update of grants that's due tomorrow? Is that what you're saying?
No, a management report to COPS so that they can, grant's been approved. Right now, they're submitting other paperwork so that the funding can be released to the town.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get, and I think that's why we keep putting it on here, an updated report every meeting of the grants, even if it's status quo?
Do you want it in writing? So is that what you're asking? Sure.
Yeah. And just curious, I know we've had discussions before, but as you stated in the minutes the last time, we don't have any grants that have any matches at this point.
No,
Right.
there's just one grant, which was applied for last year, and that was an extension to St. Paul Street. Also, hopefully will include bringing the service pipes up to EPA standards, which have changed. And that's a $1.2 million grant, and there's a 20% match to that. To my knowledge, there are no grants that pay the full amount for water line improvements.
Seeing as how this is a federal and state requirement now for lead pipe repair and removal, right? I think there is some money available, or there should be some money available for that additionally, so.
Lead and galvanized pipe as well.
Mm.
That's another pipe
Right.
material that has to be removed.
Okay, so with this 20%, do we know where this is, how we're gonna get that? Where we're gonna get that money?
Not
And
at this
What
point.
does that come up to, about
Well,
half, 20?
240.
240?
Yeah.
Okay, 240, and that's that would be just from the water, from the enterprise fund, from the water?
Well, that'll be a council decision where the money is found from, where it's going to be allocated or where it's going to come from. Ultimately, ratepayers could be paying for that, the 20%.
So, okay, but
There
at
could
this
be-
point, we haven't even applied for the grant yet, right? We haven't actually written the grant yet, is that my
Oh,
understanding?
no, the grant has been written and approved. We have to follow up with EPA. We need a grant writer to follow up with the management and administration of this.
Okay.
So the grant has been approved.
And in the event that we don't have money to fund it, how does that work? Does that
Well,
get
then we don't move forward.
extended, or?
Oh, we don't move forward then. People in that area will be, the lines won't be changed, pressure won't be improved. They'll be on an odd, even rationing day because the water comes in from another community. So that's the reason for doing this.
And did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, look, in terms of water quality, I think if it comes down to it, I think that as a council, I think we will find a way to come up with money to protect people's drinking water. But I think it goes back to the whole point about planning. You know, I know that, I think you said, Mr. Administrator, that the grant itself was approved by a previous council. Personally, I think if any grant is going to be going forward with a match, I don't think it should have the authorization to go forward unless there's a funding source attached to it. Because we could very well end up in a situation where we apply for a grant, we get it, and then it's like, now what? Now what do we do? How are we gonna fund it? How are we gonna pay for it? What are we gonna do? Like, we shouldn't have to be scrambling to find funds. We should already have an idea as to where it's gonna come. Because, you know, we shouldn't all of a sudden say to people like, oh, well, now you live in that area. All right, well, the town didn't maintain the infrastructure over there, so now you're gonna be paying additional because we got a grant, but we have a matching source. If we can find additional grant funds, or we can find other opportunities to offset that cost, maybe be a little more proactive, maybe the whole $240,000 never gets to the taxpayer. Maybe it's taken care of in another grant or some other way. So I just think it might be good, as we've talked about longer term planning, to actually look at, you know, how we're gonna fund things, including grants, because I think that's a piece that often gets missed.
And as far as the other grants, that's why I think we need, every time we have a meeting, we could have an update, even if it's a written one would be preferable, but if you can update us in between, if you got information. For instance, are any of the other grants progressing any more than they were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago? I mean, have we heard anything from Senator Reid, Senator Reid's office, or Congressman Cicilline as to when money would be coming in, how it would come in? Let's say the multi-generational, let's use that as an example. Do we have any idea yet?
No, and here again, that the administration piece of this is very time-consuming, and so we just witnessed this with the COPS grant. $375 is a lot of money, but it takes a tremendous amount of time for people to administrate this. We're going to be looking at a grant writer in a couple of minutes, so hopefully the town council is prepared to go out for an RFP for grant writers.
So, well, administration would mean to me that you've gotten the funds, right? So I'm just wondering, the $4 million that we applied for and we said we got, did we get it?
No,
Is
it's
it
not in
coming
the bank. We have been approved for $4 million.
Okay.
Now, there's certain things like environmental studies have to be performed. A lot of things have to go into this before a $4 million check, the big check with the
Mhm.
picture taking takes place,
So-
and it's deposited electronically
Okay.
in a town account.
Mhm. So are we starting on those
Oh.
other things that need to be done? I know we've talked
Yeah,
about this
well,
for several
Basically,
weeks.
council's going to have to, the last meeting we discussed creating a committee. That's one of the things that the town council wants to do. So I think we're progressing. Is it a requirement of the grant? No, but this is part of it. We have to have a direction where we're going with the multi-generational.
So okay, so then it's going to be a long discussion, I'm sorry. I'm just, if a committee is formed,
But the committee isn't
they're
gonna do
not the
grants.
That's
actual
not part of the-
engineers, they're not the actual people that are going to be doing the design of the building, they're not doing the, the environmental. So can we get those things started without this?
Well, if you're depending on a committee to say which direction the multi-generational building takes, I think you have to get that up and running fairly quickly, because then that'll be the parameters in which architectural and engineering takes place.
So can you explain that to me? And I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. I don't understand how people who are not professionals, engineers, environmentalists can tell us where we should dig, how big it should be, what the diameter of the building should be. I mean, shouldn't that be our responsibility, your responsibility first?
Well, so clarify for me, are you not looking to have a committee
Yeah.
to guide what the
and
what
they're
the
Boy
final product
Scouts,
looks
and
like?
they're
Because-
seniors.
I'm speaking,
I'm
may I
sorry.
finish?
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Mhm.
So if you have a committee come up with a plan, what they envision for this multi-generational, at that point, you do meetings, you do surveys. Now, at that point, you put it together, and then the scope of work goes out for what do we envision for that location? Now, at that point, engineering surveys have to take place.
I think that's just a backwards philosophy. And
Oh.
I think we should be, I know that the idea for a multi-generational kind of came up, I think, was shortly after, Kim, you took over on the council at that time. So if, I know that the idea came from a grant that was awarded, which is great and fine and all, but to say that we're progressing, when we passed that committee 2-3 months ago, and now here we are in May, we have nobody that's applied, we have no interest. I mean, I know people have come to the meeting, but nobody's actually submitted an application. We have a grant date that says a May 1 start date. So I think we're dragging our feet on a grant that, quite frankly, I think there's concern that we may never actually get,
I don't
And-
share
and-
your sentiments, but okay.
Well, but you have to see it from ourselves, angle, Paul. I mean, I've said it before. You've sat here before. You would be raising all sorts of questions if the shoe was on the other foot and you were on this side. I mean, to
That's
say here.
hypothetical. That's hypothetical.
Okay,
Counsel.
Paul. Point of order. I have the floor. I'm going to finish speaking. All right.
Well,
It
you
goes.
asked me.
It goes both
Excuse me,
ways.
Excuse
You
me.
asked me.
It goes both ways, Paul. All right. All I'm saying is that I think we need to come up with a plan for grants. We need to determine funding sources for grants, how we're going to fund them, how we're going to pay for them. What kind of priorities is the town setting? Does the town even prioritize those things? This whole, we're just applying for grants, kind of one piece off here, one piece off there. Yeah, it helps, but there's no long-term road plan. To say, okay, we got a $4 million grant, now we need to figure out where to go, that could take years. We could lose the grant. And I spoke to the planner, and I know he said the grant expires in 2027, but who knows if that actually holds up? I mean, it's federal funding. We have no idea if the grant's actually coming to us. So, I mean, we need to really figure out a plan here, and if we're going to utilize the funding source, we need to actually utilize it and start the process. So if we need to change direction and change paths, then we should do that quickly before we risk losing it.
Right, and I also think that having the $4 million grant is great, but we still don't have operational costs. We still don't have costs for furniture, for landscaping, for anything. So we need, and that, Tony, is kind of what we look at when we're asking you to move ahead a little bit and kind of give us an idea of what's going to happen, so that when we have all these figures together, we can tell the taxpayers what it's going to cost them on their tax bill. And we don't have any of that. We have a $4 million grant for a building, but we need all the other costs associated with that so that we can add it in, we can factor it in when we're doing our tax roll and decide, to tell people ahead of time what it is that they can expect. We have a police station that's going to cost us $268, per household in that vicinity. We're not holding anybody to it, if it goes according to plan. So that's just one factor, but we have other things that we need to add in. And we can't just arbitrarily have, you know, a discussion about a grant without having all the ancillary information that's necessary to make it a complete project. So is there anything that we can do in that regard to plan ahead for associated costs for a director, for that person's salary, for that, those benefits, you know, that, I mean, we might have to have someone run it, I would think, and then those are costs that we're gonna have to factor in during this time period in this tax roll.
Excuse me, Mr. Vadney, how many committees for structures have you been on in this town? I've been around, Mr. Vadney. You've been very active and have led the forces. Where to start and how to progress.
Too many.
If I really wanted to make this decision, I would have stayed sitting there. But I'll give you some advice. You want to start this process, it needs to start at this table.
Well, we're
The
trying.
council forget the grant. The council needs to decide what direction they want to go in. That's where it starts. And then it goes out from there. So if you have $1.2 million for a water line and you want to run a water line, there's more than one reason for that. Just using that as the example.
Right.
It just happened last week. You lost a house in town. Why? Because we don't have infrastructure to get water around our town. Does it help with drinking water? It does that too. People will be able to tie into their water lines, but it gives you another hydrant out there that's not out there that the fire department can use. The senior center, you want to build a senior center, a multi-generational center, whatever you want to call it. You know you have a grant now. You got to decide what you want in the building. I look at it as like I'm on the task force. I started on the task force 4 town councils ago.
Crazy,
You were the administrator.
crazy.
You were on the town council. You gave us a task to do, and we reported on it. And then another task. And we just keep getting, we finish the task, we pick up another task as the process goes. All those decisions have been made by the council, though, not by any outside group, not by any board that's been appointed, but you appoint people that can do the homework for you. Whether it's a budget committee, whatever, you appoint the right people, they do the homework, but you ultimately make those decisions. So as far as this multi-generational building goes, you need to decide what you want to see there, what it should entail, and then give it to the people that you want to look into to dive down, dig in, and come back and say, yep, okay, we recommend for senior services, we need to have somebody there from AARP for having an office. We need to have somebody there from Medicare so they have office space, whatever they need. And they can tell you that. People like Mrs. Tebow, they can tell you what they need in the senior center. You can call Smithfield, you can call Lincoln, they'll tell you what kind of offices you need to have, visiting nurse association and all
Right,
of that.
oh, sure. From the operational
and-
standpoint, right.
But
Well,
it's
just-
needs
so you-
for every group, am I right, Mr. Vadney? Needs for every group and what they
Well,
should have
not-
there.
Not necessarily, because
or want.
you don't need to ask Little League what they need in that building.
Right.
You need to determine who you want in that building. We'll just stick to that one building for now. Who you want in that building, who's gonna be in that building, and what the building's gonna be used for. Those are determinations that you make. Then it comes
Well,
back.
actually, no, because the grant was written without us being involved. So the grant has specifications. It is specifically for a multi-generational, and by that, young and old, and by that, scouts and elders.
I
right?
understand.
So, I mean, that's
And so you
provided.
determine how you want that done, and then give it to a committee to do homework. But it ultimately comes back to the council to making those decisions. You're the decision makers. I can get you all the information you want in a police station. There are guys that'll tell you how to build them, that have far more knowledge than I do. You have guys on that committee that have built billions and billions of dollars of construction. They do this in their sleep. This is nothing to them. But they give you advice, and then you can act on it. And it's no different with any of these other buildings. It starts with you folks, so that's where it starts.
Well, then I say
Whether,
we'd have
whether,
to get
whether,
someone
whether
else
I was
involved.
building an addition to the elementary school, whether I was fixing problems at the elementary school, building a middle school, doing work in the high school, the town hall, it all came from a committee that was elected to make that decision first.
So Madam President, I think we should probably put this as another agenda item next meeting and talk about how we're going to proceed, because we've had the committee for months now, and we can't seem to get people to apply. So if we need to pivot and go a different way, but in the meantime, I think,
We have applicants, don't we? I thought the last
Yeah, but
meeting,
they already.
but they didn't formally
Excuse me.
apply. That was the issue.
I
No,
thought
they're- They're applying now. After the last meeting, they've been sending in the information. Like I said, they believe that they were automatically just going on to this committee as we did. As our office thought the same thing, because it was already a predetermined committee. They were already specified who it was going to be, and
That's right.
So if we
So-
have applicants, why haven't we filled seats?
because I was told to go out and advertise, so it's being advertised until the next
Right,
meeting.
but since we spoke last Thursday,
Mhm.
there has been applications, or there
Well, the
hasn't?
people
Because
that
at that
were
point,
here-
there wasn't.
Yes, we have like the scouts, two publics.
Then we should be putting this on
Mhm.
the agenda if there's people applying.
well, I think it was on the agenda, and then it was said that it wasn't advertised, right? So then we had to
Correct. So-
take it off.
It was
but-
supposed to be continued, though.
but
It's not on
there's-
right now because the advertisement is still out there until the next meeting, so that we could get more applicants.
So we're going to put it on the next agenda then?
Yes,
Okay.
I have it on there already. Mhm.
And can I just to clarify, Ms. Hamilton, the question I think, one of the questions I think you're asking is, what's the next steps in the grant that have to be fulfilled? Is that kind of what you're asking? Like, are there any more steps that have to be done in order for us to actually attain this? Is that?
Right,
Kinda
well,
what-
that's why, I mean, is that something that that Administrator, you got from the Senator's office, a list of things that have to be done prior to having the check sent to us?
I don't have that list. So the next step, I think, I'd like to go back to what I originally said, is to form your committee. As Mr. Vadney said, they can opine, representatives from different demographics of the town, and ultimately the decision of the town council on which way this building's going to go. Now, as far as what the federal government are waiting for to be reported on, I don't have that. I do not have a grant writer, and the town planner is totally stretched out on his time to look into these things.
Okay.
Well,
No,
does
hold on
one
a
of the
sec.
council members wish to volunteer and assist?
Hold on a
No,
second.
it's a call
First
to
of all, the committee has been formed. It's now just a question of filling seats, right? So that piece, check the box. The other issue is that if we went out for a $4 million grant and we can't find time to prioritize that, then we have a big issue. Because what we've been telling people, we have a $4 million grant and now it's going to be up to the council, because the council, it's not the council that's dragging their feet. I mean, this is a joint effort here. This is the administration and the council. They need to work together. Instead of this butting heads over a grant, we need to find a way to come together and figure out the plan together. If we can't fill the committee for 2 more months, then I agree. We should be moving forward so that when we finally do get people in those roles, we can say, here's the plan, start executing. If it needs to change, let us know. We'll have joint meetings. But this back and forth needs to stop. I mean,
We could have already missed deadlines.
we have no idea what's expected of this grant, and we're almost ready to the day where we said we would start having almost, the way I read it, is a shovel in the ground. So I think we need to figure out a way to communicate better and stop moving on some of this stuff. And, you know, if it needs additional resources or stuff like that, I know we have the grant writer, but if it's something else, then we should be talking about it instead of we don't have the time. Sorry.
Well, how many weeks has it been since we broached the subject of a grant writer going out RFP for a grant writer? How many weeks has that taken? It's taken a while. Tonight it's on the agenda. We've received
But,
grants as templates from other communities. The town planner has written an RFP. It's before you tonight. Make a decision tonight. Hopefully, if you've got time, you have time to make a decision on going out for an RFP and see what type of grant writers come in.
well, have we contacted the Senator's office? I mean, it's a phone call. It doesn't
Well,
require a
I know
grant
that
writer
you
for
have.
that.
Do you want to?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
Excuse me.
You haven't contacted the senator or congressman's office?
I have not. I'm waiting for information from you.
Okay. Well,
That isn't
it'll
our
be
job.
forthcoming. When I get it, I will send out an email to everybody telling them where we are.
Can we just
Well, maybe
focus
we
back on the grant? So by next meeting, do you think we could just have a list of anything that's outstanding on this grant so we can make sure we don't miss any deadlines, so we don't have to go out and say that we're not going to get it?
Yeah.
And then we'll get the committee formed, get some ideas which way we're going to go with it. I think we're still waiting on an answer as to whether or not we can transfer anything or see what's out there with the grant. Like, there's things that we need to get answers on before we really decide which way we're gonna go. And I think we really need to get these answers. So if we could get those for the next meeting, and then we'll establish the committee and get a date certain for their first meeting, and let's go. I mean, this just keeps going.
Yeah, and the grant that we had for, is it $125,000 for this site? We corrected that in the minutes. Is that the
Mhm.
one?
That's correct.
What is that for?
That would have been for site plans, architectural engineering for Hallowell. That grant was not applied for. Because it also had an element that what could have happened was some of that money could have been used for asbestos abatement, but the council moved forward with asbestos abatement. And not to get off topic, but the bids came in very favorable for Hallowell. But that was part of it, so that was not submitted.
Okay. So are there
That
any?
would have taken, that would have taken at least till June to get a response on.
Okay. Are there any other grants other than the $4 million right now that we should be aware of in terms of taking some action to accelerate their success?
Well, as I informed the council last time, there was a $1 million grant through Congressman Cicilline's office that was submitted, and that's for passive recreation down there at Hallowell. Part of that, the towns at that point, we were under an estimate of $1.2 million to abate Hallowell. It came in much lower than that, so that was the town's buy-in. It was not required. I want to make this really clear. It was just showing the town's commitment to repurposing the Hallowell property. So the estimate that came in and what the town was relying on for somewhat close number for abatement was way off. We have not only demolition, but abatement is going to be taken care of with council's approval. There was 2 bids. You will see those. It's going to come before you at the next council meeting.
I think we're getting a little off topic here. So I think we'll talk about the abatement
Well,
next meeting.
So I
So
guess
we
under
could-
grants, so we're looking for a list with
Scheduled grant.
updates every week on the grants, and then the information we need that needs to go forward on the $4 million grant. What's the next steps we need to do that in order to receive the grant? And then we'll move forward with the committee, and then we're waiting on, okay. Is everyone else set?
as all said as will be.
Okay. New business, discussion by council vote or other action on approval of Wright Pierce quote, Sharon Parkway Sewer Pump Station, Bill Dory, Chairman of the Sewer Commission. Bill, are you handling that?
Good evening, William Dakota, 143 Black Plain Road, North Smithfield, Rhode Island. I'm the water and sewer superintendent. So so just to kind of give a little background, this pump station, we already got the work, the new work that's supposed to be done, the upgrades approved by council. What we weren't aware of at the time is that DEM would require us to actually just because the new style pumps that we're using, they're requiring it to be designed. Under normal conditions, we would go in, clean out the station, change the pumps out. But since we're using completely new equipment in there, a new design, they require us to get a design done. And so Wright and Pierce is our on-call engineer, and they're gonna put the plan together for the project that was already approved. I realize it's a little bit backwards, but it's, in most cases, in-kind replacement don't require DEM approval, right? Because there's no change to the facility plan, there's no big changes, but under this circumstance, there are. It's a completely different setup, right? So, and I can explain that if you want. So the old style is a wet well system, and that's tried and true. Everybody around, that's the system of choice, I would say. But when it comes to odors in neighborhoods and stuff like that, they started coming out with this fairly new technology in the United States. In Europe, it's been used, and this technology is a closed system. So when the sewage comes into the wet well, you're not getting the odors out of there. It goes directly into the pump system and directly into the wastewater system. So that's the reason that DEM required the plans on it.
Are they lasting as long? Is there does each one have a different lifespan, or?
So because it's fairly new, that, you know, like they have systems that have been working for a while in Europe, but it's fairly new over here, so we can't really say. But Wright and Pierce did a lot of research on this, and they seem to think that this is going to be a system that places that have issues with odor and things of that nature. High rises in New York City will use this kind of stuff. It's coming in. It's coming in now. So there's a lot of confidence in it. The contact with DEM is pretty excited about it. So I think we're going to see more of these, to be honest with you. I mean, we'd like to probably see in the future. We'll run this one for a while, and probably in the future, as stations come up for maintenance, we might be looking to switch them over.
So basically, as soon as you switch them, the residents are already going to see a difference because they're not going to have the odor anymore. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
And this station it's in need of being rehabbed. The way this particular station was designed is all the mechanicals are literally in the wet well. So your valves for operating and stuff like that, even once it's all cleaned off, all the valve handles have rotted off. The mechanicals inside the wet well, that's usually in a different location, so you can work on it. Well, in this one, it's not. So this one's in desperate need of the upgrades. So.
And this will be consistent, I'm sorry.
No.
With the original quote for the approved pump station, or how's that going to?
Well, so the original approved price, I mean, they're going to do what they can to hold the price. I mean, there might be a slight increase, but we've got some promise. So originally, when Delta put the design together, their thinking was put in bigger pumps, double the capacity. That actually turned out to be a problem, right? Because they decided to put it in that way, that would require us to change our facility plan on the other side. You can't just pump more sewage in. You don't know if the plumbing down the street can handle it, all things like that. So you have to do, a big investigation to that side. Wright and Pierce would have to come in and amend the facility plan, get that approved by DEM, so it's actually easier to have Wright and Pierce come in and say, hey, let's look at the design that you put forward, make the modifications by putting the pumps back to the size that they were. And because we're reducing the pump size, there should be some savings there that should keep us right in line.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Good explanation.
Thank you. I know I'll make a motion to approve this proposal.
You want to go ahead, DJ?
I'll make a motion to approve, was it 8,000? The amount of $8,945 to Wright Pierce, as per the Sewer Commission's recommendation,
Second.
Authorize execution.
and to authorize execution signature from the administrator.
We have,
Second.
sorry.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. All right, discussion by council vote or other action on appointments of town board/commissions, planning board, which is appointed by the town council. We have one appointment for a completion of a 5-year term ending 11/30/2026. One appointment as first alternate for completion of 1-year term ending 11/30/2023. And another appointment as second alternate for completion of a 1-year term ending 11/30/2023. So it looks like we're just
can we
moving.
go forth and give, we
Looks
have
like we're
3
just moving
applicants
people
as
up.
far as nominating and appointing these people this evening?
So Joanne, are we just basically moving the first alternate to the first spot, the second alternate to the first one, and then the new person to the second alternate? Is that what's happening here?
Correct, and there are 2 candidates for
For the second one, okay.
So the first one would be Dr. Benoit?
Could be.
Yes.
He would be moving.
Currently alternate 1, he is requesting to move to seat 5.
If it is permanent.
Yes.
Very good. The next one, because I only,
Is that a motion,
oh,
or?
yes, that's what, yes. I make a motion that we appoint Dr. Benoit, or move him up to a permanent position in seat 5.
Completion of a 5-year term ending
Complete-
November 30th, 2026.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Go ahead.
So out of all of the applications we have, I know I saw a couple that had full-time alternates, so I just want to make sure, so we're going to move essentially everybody up one and then figure out the second alternate?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
correct. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to add that Dr. Benoit,
Lucian?
yes, that Lucian has been very committed to anything he's done in this town, and he'd be a great asset on that board.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
No. And then the next one is the appointment to the first alternate with a term ending 11/30/2003.
I'd like to nominate Cynthia Roberts.
So she's moving from alternate 2 to alternate 1. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Hamilton? Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. And then the last one is an appointment to the second alternate for completion of 1-year term ending 11/30/2023.
I'd like to nominate Cheryl Marandola.
Are there any other nominations?
Oh, yes, I would like to nominate Ariana Ramos. If you remember, she was the first to give in, I believe with Dr. Benoit, an application. At the meetings, she came to all the meetings and sat it out, waiting for votes to be taken. None were taken, and every time we said, let's go out and see who else we can get. Well, if you have a commitment, you come to the meetings, you should be given high preference. She has an excellent resume. And if we don't start doing that, no one's gonna come and participate. She had to really want this to make the effort and come. And it wasn't the greatest part of the wintertime when she did. And her resume is very credible.
Madam President, just a point of order. So it's been a motion to nominate Was there a second to that nomination? Did anyone second that nomination? Are you gonna do this to take, if there's a second for both nominations, then have people vote by name? Or are you going to vote on each nominee, which you're gonna do, if you're taking, the way I heard you take it, you say any other nomination. So we have one, now there should be a second to that nomination.
Okay,
Then there's another and a second, and then you could take a vote by name of the candidates, and whoever's got the most vote will win. Or after you get the 2 seconds, if there's seconds on both, you could vote for one at a time, obviously, and then,
okay.
you just have to, I just want you to decide how you want this to unfold.
All right, so I need to ask for a second for Cheryl Marandola, right? Is there a second?
Second for discussion. I'm looking at the other application, I'm probably jumping ahead here, but the original application came in January. Is it customary for us to hold the application? I thought they had to reapply.
No, we do hold them.
12/15/22.
We do hold the applications if they've already applied and they haven't been placed on another seat.
Did we
And
reach
they-
out, and did we reach out, I guess, just to make sure that she was still interested?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the date of that application, please?
1/4/23, but I thought people had to,
Well, this one was
Reapply.
12/15/22. There's where the interest
No,
was,
she's looking right here.
until someone.
oh, yeah, 12,
went
yeah,
out
I
to
saw
work.
up here, though, thank you.
No matter further, if there is, the question is whether there's gonna be another second to the other nomination.
Okay,
That's
so
the first- that's
did
the
you
first.
second for Cheryl?
I did for
Yeah.
discussion, yeah.
Okay, is there a second for Ariana? Is there a second for Ariana? So no second, so that motion fails, right? Okay. So now there's a motion and a second for Cheryl Marandola. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
No,
Ms. Dozier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action regarding the town website, Mr. Ogier.
Yeah, so I just put this on here as, I know we're at 9:30 and, I don't want to take this too much longer. So I think the town website, we should be looking at ways to revamp it, and I think the council should probably get involved on that as well. The town website, I've talked to numerous people. The one thing they always say to me is how awful it is to navigate. You click on a link, it takes you to a page, you can't access something. You click on another link, it's got documents from 10 years ago. The information is kind of all over the place. And so you look at other communities and you can view a meeting on the website. There's, what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Did you skip something?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
No, go ahead, finish.
No, okay, anyways. So, you can see how people voted on certain matters. I think we can definitely improve in this area. I know last year, even on the budget committee, we talked about if the website should be a .gov versus a .org. And I believe that the state was offering some monies for that as well. So I just think that it's something that we need to do better at. I know it's not like, I know in the past I've advocated for, a Facebook page even to help share information like advertisements for boards and commissions. But I think at a minimum, we can at least make this cleaner and more organized. Some communities, they have it where, you can click on you're new to the town and here's all the things you should need to know. Or you want to start a business, here's the basic steps to start a business. So I think it's something that, like I said, I think we should look at it. And if we need to invest money into it, I think we probably should do that just to make it a place where residents can go. I mean, we've had meetings where we said it's on the website, and I know it's no fault to the clerk's office, but it's all over the place, and we can't even find the information. And that's a major problem, because if we tell residents to go to the website as a way to kind of verify stuff or to look it up on their own and they're getting misinformation, it's just creating a lot of issues that don't really need to be there. So I just wanted to start the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, when was the last time that we had a revision of this website from its creation, probably back maybe 10 years ago?
I had asked Jerry on that, because I knew this was going to be on the agenda. She had said it was only a handful of years ago, maybe about 5 or so, if I remember correctly. And then coincidentally, I had gotten an email for a vendor for a government website to host us as well, which I can always share with you guys. It's under one of the many, obviously, but it's Revise, the government website experts. One of the vendors that was at the League of Cities and Towns, one of the many, but it's one of the options that we can look into, so.
Yeah.
Well, that would be great, and I think, the more we can have some oversight instead of relying on someone from the clerk's office or someone else who just got,
Yeah.
who has time to throw something up there, a more concerted effort. Is that what you're looking for, a more
Yeah, well,
professional type of?
Also, too, it's the budget season's coming up, so if we did need to spend a little bit of money to kind of fix the website or to maintain it or stuff like that, then at least we can see if we can fit it in a budget.
Yeah.
Or if we need to plan for it, but anything, I think we need to find out, are we using the right host? Like, is it, I'm blanking on the names of the other ones they use, but, are we using the right platform, or do we need to change that to make it more organized? So,
Tony, could we reach out to some other towns and just see kind
Yeah.
of who they use and just maybe,
Yeah, I can survey for a few towns and see what they might use and get their feedback.
I mean, there might be one vendor that everyone's, might
I
use
think,
that.
yeah.
When I was at the League of Cities, there was a few discussions, because I had brought it up, there's a few discussions about some that were using the same one, but I'll get some feedback and survey.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. And then maybe we can just kind of go on their website and see how easy it is to use,
Yeah.
Thank you. Back up to new business B2, Public Art Advisory Committee, appointed by Town Council. There's one appointment for completion of a 2-year term ending 11/30/2024. There is an application in your packet. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Ashley Beauregard to the Public Arts Advisory Committee.
That's a motion. Anyone like to second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes, thank you. Council, discussion by council vote or other action regarding a request for proposal for a grant writer. Mr. Zelinski?
Yes, this is the proposal to seek grant writers. We'll have a grant writing strategy that suits the needs and requirements of the town. They will work in conjunction with the administration, the town council. Hopefully, you had a chance to read this. To consider the needs and priorities of the community. So I would probably be better off answering your questions because you've all had time to read this.
So I did go through it, and I just think that some parts of it, it's strictly looking for a firm and not an individual or a consultant. So I would think that I would just ask to go back through it, because some areas we're saying individual or consultant, and then other places where like saying, we're just strictly saying firms, consulting firm, list, include the key personnel that'll be working with us. So it's just not uniform going through the whole thing, because I think we would want to, because in the beginning it says engage a qualified and experienced individual or firm, but it seems like as we go through it, we're kind of phasing out the individual piece of it.
Would you care marking that up and I can bring it to the planner tomorrow morning? Is there a?
I mean, I can mock up some of them, but I might miss them, so I would just ask
That'd be a
if someone
start.
else
Yeah, sure.
read it also. And then my other question that I just don't understand why is, says documents shall be submitted by the deadline and addressed to Karen Bernardino in the Finance Department. I'm just not sure why Karen, who's our benefit coordinator, would be handling deadlines for grants.
Well,
Wouldn't that be planning or finance
Finance.
themselves?
well, you can make it whomever you wish, but Karen pretty much handles all the proposals that come in, whether it be construction, any of it. She's the one that does it, make sure the ads go in the paper. But if you want to designate someone else, let us know.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to designate like what her position is, and then now she's gonna be doing grants. So,
Doesn't she have something to do with human resources as well?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't she
she's not human
Have-
resources.
take upon herself?
Well, I think how this is written, it's about the proposals and how they should be submitted to the town. And Karen usually has handled all the proposals. Now, if you would like it to be the town planner or someone else, let me know.
What about the finance director?
You can do the finance director.
Because wasn't Cynthia on a lot of the RFPs and RFQs? I thought.
Not really.
I think
Yeah,
it should be a
I
sep-
would think it would go straight through finance, so at least finance has a look at it before. I mean, I'm just not seeing the line here with
I'm pretty
how
sure
it's
the finance
going.
director used to be on all of them, or the majority of
Yeah.
them.
So what would you prefer?
Tony?
Finance director.
Finance?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple of quick questions. Would this person have space at town hall?
It was not perceived to have space at town hall, but we certainly could find them desk space. They would
Okay.
have to interact, whether it's electronically, but we do have space upstairs for someone to sit down, set up with a laptop.
And this person would not be considered an employee with benefits?
No,
Okay.
1095, they'll be an independent contractor.
1099. I think we should ask the applicants to list the grants that they currently either have secured or they're working on, and other sort of like a reference guide, if you will, when you send in your resume, and here are my references, give them a call, see how I'm doing, kind of thing. I think we should have something like that in there.
Well, there is, similar to what you're speaking about, performance record of firm. Consultant shall provide a list of references for at least 3 recent local government clients of comparable sizes. Reference must include current telephone contact information and affiliation, so, sure, if it's not quite to the wording you like, by all means, let's put it in there.
I'd like to see what type of grants they're getting. You know, if they've gotten, I'd like to see what type of grants they're getting.
Sure.
In other words, are they for nonprofits or for-profits, for municipalities? Are they strictly government? Are they small? Are they 3, 4, 5, 50 million? So that we know what the capability of that individual is.
And I just want to make sure I'm not missing this. So on evaluation procedure, I have 2 points. The first one is all proposals will be reviewed by a steering committee. I'm assuming we have plans to form a steering committee to review these, or we will at one of our next meetings. And then who's going to sit on that committee? And then also, the town may or may not conduct interviews with top-ranked firms prior to making a selection. When would we not interview people?
I'm sorry,
would-
may or may
when-
not, what?
When would there be a situation where we wouldn't conduct an interview with a top-ranked firm?
Depending if the applications come in and they did not meet what was required of them. At
Yeah.
that point, if they're sloppy in their applications, you know.
Yeah, but I agree with that. I wouldn't want to waste people's time. But top-ranked firm, right? So it's really, if they are a top-ranked firm, I just want to make sure I'm reading it right, that we will conduct interviews on all top-ranked firms? And how do we delineate a top-ranked firm? Is it 1, 2, 3? Is it 1, 2? And then also, too, I agree, if they don't meet a certain criteria, then just say thanks for applying and move on. I just want to make sure we're consistent, so somebody says, oh, well, I got interviewed and I didn't get interviewed, and now it's like, why, you know?
So I would ask that if council wants to mark this up and they have suggestions, if they can identify the section, send an email to me and I'll get it, or I'll get it on to the planner for a rewrite.
So I just want to be clear what you want us to do. You want us to submit recommendations back to the planner directly, or to you?
Well, to me,
Do you want to mock up this one? I've already
Yeah, I
started.
think if we just mark up one
Well,
document
if
right
we're gonna
now.
lock them up now and hand them in, that'd
Yeah,
be great.
I just want to make sure they all get in one spot, that's all.
Sure. But by all means, don't, take your time and submit what you think's appropriate.
Any other discussion on this topic?
The only other thing I was wondering, I know some other cities and towns, when they do engage a grant writer, ask them to have some type of liability insurance or something that, covers them. If they slip, if they fall, if they do something wrong, if they,
Errors
that
and
type of
omissions,
thing.
things of
I
that
would think
nature.
we could try to ask them for that, yeah.
Is that, you mind putting it on there? I'll have it incorporated.
Okay, let's move on then.
Okay, so I guess we'll give you our changes, and then maybe we can see it at the next council meeting?
Solicitor, is this something that I can disseminate with the appropriate, do not discuss with others?
Yeah, you can send it in one direction. No, you're
So
talking about
send
you're
it
gonna send it to the
to
council,
Joanne.
the council gonna send it to you.
Well, the council can send it through the town. Well, what I'm getting at is if we do these amendments or these changes, I'd like to get it out to you as soon as possible, and with the,
You can disseminate any information to the council. The council just can't have a conversation.
okay.
Right, and then we obviously can't,
You can't send it
Talk
back
about
and
it
you
until
can't
the next
reply-
meeting.
You can't reply to an
Yeah.
email that you receive.
okay, so we'll see so maybe we'll have a revised draft by the next meeting. Are we all set to move
All
on?
set?
Okay. Discussion by council vote or other action on amendment to Code of Ordinance, Section 6-4, Purchasing and Competitive Bidding Procedure.
Yeah, so, let's find the right copy here, because one of mine is missing pages, so give me a second.
Have it?
I got it now. So I put this on the agenda because I was looking around at how other communities navigate this, and I know our ordinance says, up to the $5,000, $10,000 for construction, $5,000 for everything else. And it looks like it's pretty much what the state law says, and except that in there it also says that the town can kind of clarify it as needed, essentially. And one of the communities I saw was Lincoln, and I thought theirs purchasing policy was very thorough. I'm not saying we need to get this thorough, but they talk about contracts and what is a contract, including grants, should they have insurance, et cetera. And then it also talks about in the back, small purchases. And I think this is really important, that they don't change the dollar amounts, but what they do say is that if the amount of the procurement is in excess of $2,500, but no more than $5,000, a minimum of 3 verified and recorded telephone bids shall be solicited and award made on the basis thereof. I just think it's, and then the rest of it goes in the state law. I just think that it could be helpful.
I agree.
Treat it kind of similar in nature, not necessarily you can go out to the full bid, but, it also talks about, like the sole purpose and all that stuff. And, I don't mind working with the solicitor and, the president to craft something to kind of just maybe tweak it slightly. And then also, if it's allowed, get the administrator's feedback, or if we have to wait for a meeting. But I think it just may help kind of clear up some of the language of what is, and kind of give them more of a better guideline in terms of how to navigate some of these
Question
things.
for you.
Sure.
What section is that in?
Oh, great question. Section 4810 on 48.7 on that page.
It's like it's like the last page, but before you flip it over.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the back page or the front page.
See, if I may, if I may?
Yeah.
So, I agree to go out and get some, I've never had a problem with that. That's how the town used to operate, somehow that, but a minimum of 3 verified and recorded telephone bids shall be solicited, a minimum. A lot of times, it's difficult to get more than 1 or 2 bids. But if the attempt's made and documented, would that suffice?
I think we could probably clarify that. I think that would, if you're trying to get a bid or something like that, not everything, like if you're gonna go out and buy a lawnmower, that's a little bit different than if you're going out for a particular service. So I think the attempt might be okay in that instance, but, we can definitely flush that out.
Okay.
And if I may,
Yeah.
Counselor, 48-16, it says staff consultants, the procurement of the service of an attorney, physician, or dentist by how the town shall be exempt from the provisions of this chapter. So it's very specific as to who is exempted. We know who's, oh, thank you. We know who is, you know, captured, but it would be nice to have a specific exemption clause so that we can see it right away when we're looking at it, and there's no concern about clarification as to what or whom we can engage without having to get bids or, you know, that type of thing. So that would be just my only suggestion from Lincoln.
Definitely. Do you want to, Paul?
Just as an aside to this, by looking at this ordinance, I had a discussion with the solicitor
Well, can you,
from before I was on the council. We have purchasing policy, we have purchasing ordinance, we have purchasing in our charter, and you have state law, and not one of these things line up. So if you wanna look at this thing, you look at all of them together, try to get them to all look the same. Just as a guidance for you.
Thanks,
When you're looking at it, how to make them all mesh together.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I didn't want to interrupt, but Mr. Vadney's bringing up the point, we were both on, I was served, not served, but I served Mr. Vadney on the Charter Review Commission. My recommendation then, as it is now, is the charter should be amended that says you follow state law. That's my advice to all the cities and towns that I serve. Trying to come up with your own law does nothing but create these kinds of problems. Because anytime your law is inconsistent with state law, it becomes technically an invalid provision of local law.
But the state law says we can carve out this specificity. So if we change the charter to say match the state law, then it's good.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what the charter is not changed right now, right? So all I'm saying is that Mr. Vadney's raising the point. You're tinkering with an ordinance thinking you're solving the problem, and the bigger problem is you should just be your ordinance should say we follow state law. And then if you want to carve out some little thing, I mean, that's really where you should be. That's where his advice was. That's where the Charter Review Commission was. We're going back 6 years now. And that's always been my advice to this council for the last 6 years, that this back and forth on these things creates nothing but problems because state law controls.
Sure.
All right.
That should be
So-
on the ballot.
You want to work on it?
Whenever there's a
too?
conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Right.
But again, tinker with it right now, I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's just ultimately not the solution.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we want to extend before we do the next two items?
No.
Just a half hour.
Yeah, I'll extend it one time. That's it.
Or half hour?
Half hour.
Okay. Roll call?
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on adoption of town policy for voluntary donation and transfer of sick leave for catastrophic illness and major injury. So, reading through this, you know, it says everything that we talked about. I'm just wondering if there should be, because on one, because like on item 3, it says department director will, and it says file employee's request with personnel department / human resources. So I'm wondering if we should just do personnel / human resources throughout the whole thing. So should in the future we do have human resources and they or the personnel board can be the holder of this or the bearer of it?
I guess I'm not clear when you say the decision has to be made by the personnel board, because we had this discussion.
Okay,
The administrator did not want to make the decision. He referred it to the personnel board. So we're talking about filing a request. The personnel board is, as you know, is a board made up of volunteers. You want, somebody files a request that they need this particular benefit, you need to be filing with a full-time employee whose job it is to take that application. and then they submit it to the personnel board to call a meeting, which I understand does not meet very often. This is now gonna be a function of the personnel board. This was what was discussed a while back, as well as negotiated with the union.
Okay.
So, the only thing I would say, I don't mind changing anything, but if anything we change is substantive, then we have to go back to the union, because
Okay.
there's also an MOA in your packet.
Right.
We don't have to go back to them, but we kind of approved this document.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I
Based
know,
upon
but,
approving this document, I submitted it to the union, who submitted it to their membership.
all right, I was just saying, because one of them says /human service, or human resources, so I just wondering if,
But you're talking about 3A, that's to file the employee's request,
okay,
right? A department director of a particular department gets it, they file it with the department, we're saying personnel department /human resource. It may not be a human resource, but there is a
Okay.
personnel
Right now,
department,
there is, right.
and that person will then notify the personnel board, just call a meeting and make a ruling.
okay,
Okay.
That's who's gonna make the ruling. That's the system that we set up, as opposed to the administrator making the decision.
okay. Got it.
Obviously, if this was a more complicated situation, this would be a committee made up of union members and town members. But we're not doing that. We're doing a very specific, limited thing. We're not creating a sick bank, as you know. We're not doing that.
No,
You're providing a very,
specific, okay,
just one benefit. And I'm not trying to, but I'm just trying to remind the council of where we came from. This document is not perfect. You can always change it, you can always modify it, but I wouldn't do it on the fly. If you want to make a change, then let's just continue this to another meeting.
no, it's fine.
I'm not against changing it, I just don't want to,
So in the future, if we have HR, then we can say we want to amend it to include the HR in
Absolutely.
this portion. Okay,
Right.
perfect.
And as you notice, the way it's, we have actually a memorandum of agreement with Council 94. We've submitted this to the police department. They have not, as of yet, the police union has not responded, but I make a reference to them under the section collective bargaining that this is available. They're interested, basically, let us know. Because this is a management right. We went to the extra step of working it out with the union and offering it to the other union. But we haven't heard anything from them. At least I don't know, you haven't heard anything.
No, I've not, no, as of last week, no.
So my biggest piece with this is the HIPAA component. And so I know HIPAA is very specific in terms of where you can save and store information.
It's waived in there.
So they have to waive it.
They have to waive
Okay.
it.
Just wanted to make sure, thanks.
It's 2C.
So now, we just have to come up with a form that the employee would fill out, and then
It would be a simple request.
simple request,
You didn't
And then-
understand my question.
Then the
person donating.
They'd have to sign a waiver of all the medical information, submit it to the personnel board. The personnel board would review it, and assuming it's a catastrophic illness, or major injury,
Right.
that's non-work related, and they determine it qualifies. This is like someone gets into a car accident and break their neck. This is not somebody who's scheduling an operation that they're planning. That's not what this is.
Right.
That's what sick time is for, FMLA is for. This is an unusual,
Right.
very unusual event. This is very limited. I just want to remind the council where we were on this.
So I think I don't think I asked my question clearly.
I'm
So, no, that's my fault. So if the personnel board gets, because we're talking about maintaining confidentiality, if they get somebody's medical documentation, where they save that is ruled essentially by HIPAA. So they can't save it to like a personal desktop or something like that. Like, do we have those steps in place, or will we have those steps in
Well,
place
we'll
to
have
ensure?
We'll have to.
Just don't want to set us up for a HIPAA violation.
It specifically says the authorization and use and disclosure is controlled, and I actually cite the federal statute.
Right, but like I work in healthcare, and so like I can't save stuff to a personal computer. You know what I mean? So it's
But
it's
we're
very
serving
governed on the
statute,
IT
so
side of things.
If our personnel department doesn't know about it, then they shouldn't be running our personnel department, right?
I guess yeah, no, I agree. It might be good to have Vertical 6 consulted maybe with in terms of how they want to set up the security aspects, because you can do things with like SharePoint and stuff like that to really lock it down. So, but I don't want us to be set up in a HIPAA situation, and it would,
Good point.
and get into those issues, so.
You understand, people that are injured now are submitting their medical records to the town for review for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're consistent in our IT policy, that's all. I don't want to, I don't,
This is not something that.
you don't want the government showing up asking to pay
Where
money.
somebody is submitting medical records to get, after 3 days being out of work, they have to submit medical records, for injury.
No, I agree, I agree.
I understand your point's well taken, and this by no means is setting up the mechanism, it's setting up the policy.
Right, I just want that, if we go forward with this, I just want that piece locked in.
And again, this is not my request. This is just a document created at your request.
All right, so we have the document. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to enter into a memorandum of agreement.
No, we gotta-
Item F.
To adopt the policy.
Oh,
first. I'm
sorry,
There's two
sorry.
There's two items on your docket. One is, do
Oh.
you want to adopt the policy?
I do.
And then number two, do you want to enter into the memorandum?
I want to make a motion to adopt the town policy for voluntary donation and transfer of sick leave for catastrophic illness and major injury.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
And for the record, the next item, the Council 94 has already approved the memorandum of agreement, subject to your ratification. So you would now approve the memorandum of agreement, ratify the agreement, which adopts the policy and authorized signature.
Okay. All right, discussion by council vote or other action on ratification of memorandum of agreement between the town of North Smithfield, Rhode Island, and Local 937, Rhode Island Council 94, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, regarding the adoption of town policy for voluntary donation and transfer of sick leave for catastrophic illness and major injury. Anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we enter into a memorandum of agreement with Local 937, Rhode Island Council 94, and AFSCME, AFL-CIO, for the voluntary donation, transfer of sick leave for catastrophic illness and major injury, and allow the town administrator to sign.
And authorize execution.
Yeah, she did. She said
And you said that.
Yes. Execution.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. And the last item is open forum for agenda items only. Anyone like to speak? No? Once again, anyone like to speak? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.